We are very grateful to have 4 exceptional panelists here to speak on history as a living, relational, and deeply human space, and to center the ideas and questions that have informed these 2 unique exhibitions. Our panelists today are Qiana Mestrich, Channon Anita Simmons, Leslie Deschler Canossi, and Zoraida Lopez-Diago. Diago Lopez, right?
Zoraida Lopez-Diago.
Yeah, Lopez-Diago. Okay, I wrote it right. Qiana Mestrich is an interdisciplinary artist, writer, and photo historian whose autobiographical artwork and research delves into the complexities of Black and mixed race identity, motherhood, and women's corporate labor. A first-generation American of Panamanian and Croatian descent, her photography and collage work has been exhibited in the United States and internationally, most recently at Vassar College's Francis Lehman Loeb Art Center and at the National Museum of Computing in Bletchley, UK. Mestrich is the founder of Dodge and Burn, Decolonializing Photographic History, a long-running initiative to diversify the medium's canon, and her book, based on its interviews, was published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis in March 2025. We have copies over there, so please, if you need more after this conversation, go head over there, which you will. Recent awards and residencies include the 2022 Magnum Foundation Center Counter Histories Grant, a 2024 Baxter Street Artists in Residence, and 2025 CPW Saltzman Prize for Emerging Photographer, and the 2025 VMFA Aaron Siskin Award for Excellence in Contemporary Photography. Channon Anita Simmons is a Brooklyn-based creative who functioned as a photo assistant, muse, and collaborator to her sister, acclaimed photographer Nona Faustine. She worked behind the scenes, assisting in bringing to light Faustine's powerful examination of history and race in the renowned White Shoes series, which explores the legacy of slavery in New York. To her sister, Slavery in New York. Leslie Deschler Canossi is a photography educator and cultural producer. For over 14 years, she was a faculty member at ICP and currently leads long-term critique groups for La Luz and here at CPW. She holds an MFA in photography and digital imaging from Maryland Institute College of Art. Leslie co-founded Women Picturing Revolution, an organization dedicated to women identifying photographers who have documented conflicts and crisis in private realms and public spaces. And last but not least, Zoraida Lopez-Diago is a photographer, curator, and intersectional environmentalist whose work explores land, memory, and visual justice. She examines photography as both archive and intervention, reclaiming narratives shaped by race, gender, place, and power, and interrogating how images construct belonging and historical memory. In 2022, she co-curated Picturing Black Girlhood, Moments of Possibility, an exhibition centering Black girls and genderqueer youth as sites of imagination and autonomy, and is currently co-editing Picturing Black Girlhood, which will be out with Aperture in 2027. Lopez-Diago and, Zoraida and Leslie are founders of Women Picturing Revolution. Their book, Black Matrilineal, Photography and Representation, Another Way of Knowing, featured the work of both Faustine and Mestrich and also can be found here. So we're so pleased to have you all here today, and I'm going to pass the mic over, and thank you all.
I wanted to take a moment, of course, to thank all of you for being here today, for making your way through the St. Patrick's Day Festival. I know it was a lot for us to make our way through. So I wanted to thank both of you, and of course to thank Qiana and Channon. Thank you for today, for all of your time throughout this process, and for your energy, and just for all of you, all that you do.
Thank you. And we wanted to thank you. Thanks, CPW. As always, extraordinary experience here at CPW. We're so glad all of you are here. Thank you for coming and tuning in on the live stream. Special thanks to Marina Chow, who couldn't be here today, the curator, and Adam Ryan for all their incredible work. I think we can just see the love and care and excellence in all the exhibitions here. Also, Sarah and Nicole for your incredible support through this process and your warmth, and just, it's a beautiful place. So I'm so glad everyone has found CPW and everyone's here. So then with that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're going to start with a two-part question. Qiana, I know that you and Nona had a really, really long history of knowing each other. And so we want to begin by you framing that a little bit and talking about how you and Nona met. And then the second part is, how did you and Channon meet?
Yeah, I definitely met Shannon through Nona. But yeah, Nona and I went to the ICP Bard MFA program, and Marvin Heifman was a faculty member there at the time, and Patricia Silva, one of the graduates as well. But yeah, we met in the program, and we quickly connected on many levels. We realized we were both grew up in Brooklyn, sort of same sort of Flatbush, Crown Heights area. And we were both of our mothers were Buddhists, and we both also had small children at the time in the program. So we quickly bonded over being, one of, I think the third mother was Michi Jagarjian, who was a year ahead of us. And so we all just kind of quickly bonded about being young mothers in this graduate program, and really wondering how we were going to get through. But yeah, that was our bond. And then after that, we just kind of, stayed friends and talked all the time about photography, and Shannon would be in the background and talking, we'd be having a three-way conversation. We were just confidants, and then that we shared our pain, our joys and our sufferings through trying to be artist mothers and women of color in the world of photography. And it was a really, really special friendship that I miss dearly. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to add anything to how you know? Okay.
And I'll just briefly mention,
Great.
so what you're seeing here is a cover of the book that we edited together. This doesn't have Nona's name as the editor, but the first iteration of the book we did in 2012 for a conference that we went to in Toronto around motherhood. And the three of us, Michi, Nona, and I, put this book together at ICP. We printed it on like the laser printer, and then hand stapled these booklets to bring to the conference. This is the first printed version that was printed with Secretary Press, which was Michi's press back in the day, and this is the second edition of How We Do Both.
Right, and I just wanted to lift that. So 2012, it's a pretty remarkable publication. It's a really important publication in the maternal art space, and that you all were working together so kind of early on in that process is really something significant. This book shows up all the time in the conversations around that space. So how many editions are out now? You're on your second or third of them?
This is the third. I mean,
Okay.
technically the third, but
That's right.
two only, formally printed through a press.
Okay.
But the first edition was hand printed.
And we were hoping to, and Shannon, anytime you want, if you want to add anything, I can answer if there's a. Okay.
Yeah.
We wanted to share just a little bit briefly about the work that both you and Nona were doing at that time that you met at ICP. So we have just a few slides to share
Sure.
now. So this predates your ICP experience, I think, by a couple of years to set the tone of where you were in this practice.
Yeah, I started this. This is a body of work called Trust Your Struggle, and this is sort of my postpartum project, I would say. With my son who's now 15, when he was born, I spent a month in the hospital after he was born. I had a pulmonary embolism, and so some of the images in this body of work are about my hospital experience. But yeah, when I came home, and I was just like, what now? I have this young baby that relies on me, but yet, I'm in this transition of transitioning to this new role as a mother, this new identity as a mother. And I'm home alone with my baby, and I'm in the confines of this apartment, and still wanting to make pictures, still wanting to make images. So this is the body of work that I made, and then I applied to the MFA program with.
Okay. Thank you. And then we have an example of some of the work you were doing, I think was part of your thesis.
Yes, this
And-
is my thesis work. Yeah.
Right. So this was namesake.
Mhm.
And then I have one slide from the work you did right after in 2014.
Mm.
And then we pulled 2 slides of where we the work that Nona may have been doing at ICP with you. So
Yeah,
anything
this
you
is
wanna add?
this is the namesake series, and these are photographs of photographs. Essentially, I was named after a fabric made by DuPont in the 60s, and so part of this research was Googling. I was Googling just the name Qiana to find more information about the fabric, and ended up stumbling upon a whole archive online of other women of color named Qiana, mostly mugshots. So that body of work really talks about the population that is imprisoned, and typically in this country, and just really my relationship to them. But also at the time I was reading this article by Alan Sekula, or this essay, very seminal essay, The Body in the Archive, which talks about sort of the evolution of photography around the same time as the birth of this sort of photography used to criminalize and to really stereotype people into criminal identities. So yeah, that's this work is. I'm really kind of trying to connect with this archive of women, but also blur their identity in a way. My original intention was to kind of upload these to Google and also like try to suppress a lot of the results to give them some sort of privacy that they weren't getting. And at the time, what Google was doing is they were allowing the databases of counties and various states, the criminal databases, to be indexed in their search results. And my day job is also as a digital marketer, so I know a lot about the way Google works and the way search engines work. So oftentimes my job intersects with my art practice. But yeah, my original intention with these images was to feed them into the search engine results and kind of suppress the original mugshots, because these are booking images, right? These are images that are taken before you're even charged with a crime. And all of their personal information was also up there, name, date of birth, height, what they were charged with, where they lived. And in the age where we Google everything, that kind of information can really be, can really hold you back in life. So, and yeah, I typically display these in a series of 5, and because a police lineup is typically 5 people, and they're in varying heights to accommodate for the fact that these are real people, so they would be different heights in real life. But yeah, the blurring is very intentional for that reason.
And then we just have this piece that you did immediately following, and we have 2 of Nona's pieces that are saying this was immediately following graduation, but it introduces this collage way that you're working most recently.
Yeah.
Show here.
Yeah, this is my second series with collage. I did another series during the program with collage, but this is my second body of work where I'm using collage. I'm taking the black and white images are the sort of marketing images of the Qiana fabric. So I went to the DuPont headquarters in Delaware and did research around how they marketed this fabric. And then the cutouts are the mugshots of the women, and I'm in there somewhere as well. That's my mouth there at the bottom. Not a mugshot, but it's a school ID that I used. But putting myself in this history as well. But yeah, I really wanted to kind of mesh this world of sort of the fantasy Qiana and the real life Qiana. What is the legacy of this fabric, and how did it play out socially?
I wonder for both of you, how do you? It's kind of like a multi-part question. How do you define an archive? How do you define, especially in this particular moment, the role of being a holder of an archive, and then at the same time, both of you are building new archives in a way? And Qiana, also thinking about how you mentioned kind of like feeding Google these alternative images. And for someone who works so closely in SEO, I can't help but ask, there's so much focus now on like AI. And so like, how do you see that influencing how we think about archives and how we kind of counter mainstream narratives too? So I know that's a big question. So I'm just going to start with, how are you defining an archive and seeing your role in being an archivist? So I want to start with you, Shannon.
I don't know how to define an archive. Like with Nona's work, I just realized, since she's gone, like I think of every single thing that she ever did almost, or that she wrote. And I think of her writing too as part of the archive, as her artist archive.
Social media posts.
But her social media posts, because she was like so deep into Facebook for many years before she joined Instagram. And she worked Facebook like her job. Like she legit would, my friend James would say, no, I saw it on Nona's magazine. Like he felt that anything was any current events or like pop culture, anything, he would just go to Nona's Facebook. And so everything like that. And it's good to have it, look back through it. Like I immediately downloaded her Facebook after she passed, because it's so rich in like so many things and I didn't want to lose it. That's part of her archive. But as the keeper right now of the archive, I think it's, it's releasing things like kind of, I want to release everything, or like just to let people know, because I always say to people, like, I'm her biggest fan. Anybody else that ever comes up to me and tries to say, oh, I'm her biggest fan, they better be careful because I might knock them out. But I'm really her biggest fan because I just always thought she was so talented, and I love the way artists' minds work. And like, if you live with an artist, or your artist is your best friend or your brother or sister, like to watch them, how your mind works, how you compose things, how you come up with ideas. And you say, how did you come up with that? Like some of the titles that she would come up with for her works, like I would always be like, I would say at first, where'd you get that from? Where'd you see that? And she said, I came up with it. And I'd be like, yeah, of course. But as the keeper of the archive, I think I just want people to know that her work wasn't just white shoes. I mean, I understand, Nona would always do this thing where we would always talk about actors and what their pivotal role was in their career. Like, and so when someone passed away, she would always like think about what movie they had that was just so like, pivotal to them, what everybody or what their greatest work was. Not necessarily what everybody associated them with, but I think in an archive, you want people, as a keeper, you want people to recognize that it's more than just that famous body of work that they're responsible for. Like everyone goes to Wall Street, and I understand it. I mean, I was there. So like anytime I see that picture, I just think about that.
Yeah, what is an archive? It's really interesting question. I think before graduate school, I thought an archive was something that was kept in an institution and had people, around it constantly, in air-controlled space. But archives are, for me now, are really like living things. They're lives in themselves. And I'm like, right now I just finished curating an issue of Enfoco's photography journal with Marilyn Nance's archive. And like, talk about a consummate archivist. Like, not only she's an amazing photographer, but her archival practice is intense.
Yeah,
like,
she's serious. She's
insane.
really serious. I mean, I've known Nona was Marilyn's intern from 92 to 94. So yeah, I'm really familiar with her, and I've known her so long at this point. But her archive is like, yeah, she's
And not just the photos, like in the film, but all the correspondences, and she's really kept everything organized. She has this filing system, like not a trained archivist, but she clearly knows how, archival practices. So yeah,
yeah. She was really like after Nona passed, she would like call me like all the time and say, or send me things. And she'd say, oh, I have this letter from the first time I was in MoMA, and like Nona took my work over, and it's a correspondence letter that has her name. My assistant's bringing this over, and she's like, I'm going to send it to you, a copy for your archive. So she's like,
I kind of feel like I years ago went to the Yayoi Kusama had a big show. I think it was either at the MoMA or the Whitney. Amazing archivist, like saved. If she sent you a letter, she had a copy of that letter. And I think for so many women artists, like we believe that we will make it big when others won't. Like we build our archives and keep those archives because we know that we value ourselves when others don't value ourselves. And that's, something that thinking of Marilyn Nance and Nona, and, I was reading Qiana when you said you were in school and just started getting into photography, and you said to your professor, like, okay, where are the women of color? And they said, okay, go to the library. And then that was it. And there was no mention of, of people who looked like you in school, and how just that self-belief, which like first time I met Nona, I knew she had right away. It was just so important. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for saying what you said, because we're going to spend a lot of time on young mothers tonight, which is up next. I just wanted to see if there's anything else you'd like to add about the two images that were around the time she was at ICP, and I believe this is the start.
well, Wall Street, which everyone calls that photo from her body, came there great as well. Everyone just calls it Wall Street. But yeah, this was first. This was pretty early on in the project. And we started out with Coney Island, Brighton Beach. So to like really, gear up. And then next was the courthouse, and both courthouses, Supreme Court and Tweed. And then we'd done all of those. We'd done Supreme Court and Tweed in like the dead of winter when it was like, 10 degrees. And so this was in the spring. This was, in the spring. It was like the beginning of spring, like kind of like, I think right around this time, maybe like the beginning of April. And Nona was so nervous. She puts it in the book, she really details how nervous she was to do this here and be here. I don't know if any of you have ever, I really recommend that one day you go to Water and Wall Street, go to this location, because like, I think any time of day you'll understand, even with a lot of traffic, this was like really early in the morning. So this is after daylight savings time. So, it was like, but it was really early in the morning on a Sunday. And so no one was around, but it feels so, these two crossroads, it feels so vast, it feels so like big. And, she's standing there like, so small almost, like in this frame. Of course, she's the only thing, she's like, it's really big. But what I also love about this photo is that there's lots of things going on around it. There's like a construction crew over there. And then over here, we're like a group of like 6 young men that were coming from a club. So they were just on the corner and they were like laughing and talking, and they did not see Nona for the longest time. It was so weird. They're right behind the light pole, right there. And we didn't see her. We're like standing in the middle. I got the tripod. It's Nona's friend Davis, who's a really tall guy. So like we're just, and they didn't see her. And then when they finally saw her, they were like, whoa. But yeah, this photo is like, it's so amazing to me still. And I was like, this is from 2013. I still look at it and I'm still so amazed by it. Yeah, but the next one.
Thank you.
Um,
And
This
do you
was
want
in
to talk
the-
about your collaboration? Oh, sorry, Qiana.
No, I was just going to say this image was in the MFA
That's
group
right.
show,
Okay.
but she also had the cutouts
Right, yeah.
in the show as
That's
well,
right.
which was really great to
That's right.
see. And this is a location that as a child, I passed by this all the time.
Same thing.
It's the Dutch
Yeah,
cemetery,
yeah.
right, in Flatbush. So it was really great to see her working with this site specifically.
This church, we grew up like where this church is, 2 blocks away from it used to be our apartment building. So we definitely walked past here like so many times. But the thing about this photo, I talk about it in the audio guide, was that this church, like, people take a shortcut in the neighborhood, used to always take a shortcut through this because it's on East 21st Street on the side, and then Church Avenue. So like people will cut across to go to Flatbush this way. And so the gate would always be open. So you'd see people all the time, like cutting through here. And so since the gate was always open, we were like, Nona was like, I'm gonna go in. This was our second time here, her second time here. My first time here with her. And what happened was the groundskeeper came out. He saw us and then he went and alerted the Reverend. And so then she came out. And we also had Queen Ming with us. And at the time, Queen Ming was a little girl. She was like 7 years old. And so when the Reverend came out, she really wanted to shame us, for having this child here with these photographs. She was really appalled by the nakedness. So she said, you can't be here. She was really stern. She spoke to us like, we were 5 years old. And then when Nona hit her with the, oh, well, I'm a master's, I'm in a master's program and I'm doing my thesis on this. And my research has told me that there are enslaved, Africans buried here, and that's why I'm here. Then she like totally changed. She was like, oh. And then she said, well, you're welcome to come shoot here. You just need to fill out the proper paperwork. You need to, there's a protocol, and we'd love to have you back. So many people do shoots here, so many production. And Nona was like, well, I'm not a production company. I don't have the fees for all of that. She's like, well, you just contact us and we'll help you out. And we never heard from her. We never heard from the church. They never ever called her. But by the time they had come out, Nona had done a whole bunch of different scenarios with these cutouts. So we never needed to like go back,
Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to note that this was the first image that I saw at ICP going down that very long hallway. And I remember, this is years. I met Nona, I think in 2016, 16, when we did our talk at Columbia. Nona was a guest. Yeah. That's when I first met her. With Qiana V. Jackson was there, and that's where we met a few different. Jonathan Michael Square was there. It was like a wonderful group of people. But I remember standing in front of this image and just wanting to know this person. It took a very long time to get there, so it just feels so beautiful to see it. And we have quite a lot. As you imagine, there's so much work to go through. Later, we definitely want to talk to you about the titling and your deep collaboration and your mother's collaboration with Nona as well. There's quite a few young mothers. We were imagining, since this is the first time this work has shown, anything you want to share about this work. I'm just going to go through the slideshow.
Yeah,
This is so special. How many pictures are in the series?
there's a lot. There's more than what you see
Okay.
here. It's because it's a series that she worked on for 2 years. And
And there's-
all of the women, the young mothers we knew really well.
These are, the prints in the back are prints that Nona made
That
in
she printed
undergraduate
herself, yeah.
in the dark room.
Hmm.
And this is the first time they've been shown publicly.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Hmm.
And we would love to ask, how did that happen? How did that happen that young mothers came to light now? You could walk us through that.
It was something that, she always wanted to get it shown. After she had first shot it, she was like, this can be a book. This is Ebony. The first slide was Carmen Jr. And Carmen Jr. and Ebony, their mothers worked with our mother. So we knew them well. We were, Nona and I were a little bit older than them, but we kind of known them for a long time as like the kids of, our mothers were all friends and co-workers. But Nona, this is my friend Sabrina's daughter. And she wanted to get it shown. She had she had a connection to someone at Vibe magazine, and they hooked her up with a interview with Emil Wilberkin, who was their editor-in-chief at the time. So she went in and she showed him the portfolio. This is Renee and Tariq. And Renee is someone that was one of my close friends as a teenager. We're still friends. But she came in and she showed him everything, and he didn't seem excited about it at all. And she left feeling like so defeated. And then only for a few months later for Vibe magazine to kind of do a knockoff series of this series for the magazine. And Nona was just so distraught. She was so upset. At the time, she wasn't really taking photographs anymore. She was working for a global photo agency. And so that really, I think, defeated her from like continuing. She was like, that's it. No, nobody wants to see my work. This is Mary Faith. Her and Nona were classmates in SVA, and she was pregnant for their last year when they were seniors. And so Nona, being her close friend, she was there at the birth. This is her with her fiance, Tim. And so she didn't put any limits on it. She was like, yeah. This also was at the time, you have to remember, like around the time Demi Moore had been famous about, like, her birth, and like, people, like women were really being like more open to, like, it wasn't, being shielded a secret. Like, they were very proud of the childbirth. So this is Gabriel, like his first shot in the world. And this is my aunt's house. These are my cousin's baby pictures. And this is my cousin Joy and my aunt Ella behind her. Joy, I think, was the youngest young mother because she was pregnant. She became pregnant in her senior year of high school. All the other mothers were like out of high school or in college. And so that's her again.
These were so extraordinary when we first saw them. Our reaction was just, this documentary urge that Nona had. It's it's a very specific skill set.
Yeah.
Just to know how to tell a photo story in this way, let alone gaining that kind of access and trust.
Yeah.
And I was just next level, just so impressed with Nona in every way because, you know, I had seen White Shoes first and then Mitochondria and then more of White Shoes. And to know her creative kind of capacity and genius for both documentary practices and fine art creative practices. And we'll get into later, you know, the titling of White Shoes and Mitochondria, they're also history lessons,
Yeah.
right? So it's this full experience. And this is someone who, if I had seen these, if I was at that table at Vibe, this is a photographer who I probably would have pushed onto kind of a documentary practice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
and
saw herself as she saw herself as a documentary photographer, and she was really proud to be a documentary photographer. This is Joy with my cousin Angelica, her baby, very, very early on in the hospital. I think this shot was.
Nona always talked about Roy DeCarva. And
Yeah.
as
Oh
soon
my
as I
God, she
saw this
loved
work,
him.
I was like, oh my God, there it is. Like,
So she was always like a student of photography, like
she
from
was a
really
photo
young.
historian for sure, too.
She talked about a lot about the Time Life books that my dad had, and there were a lot of them. He was like very obsessive with photography and like learning techniques, and you know, and Nona, she had like looked at those books and studied those books from like the time she was like 8 years old. This is my godson, Jael, and that's my mother in her hand, his mother's hand, and then my hand. So this was like when he first came home. But I didn't understand how. Now I feel like you see a lot of photos like this kind of this with the hands, like it's very, very much. But at the time, you didn't really see a lot of things like that. And I just didn't understand how he was like, okay, yeah, that's great. So yeah, I didn't understand how no one wanted to, you know, show this work. And I don't know if any of you know the movie Love Jones, but it's like the same thing with the main character when she's like showing her work and like she just couldn't get it shown at the time. And Nona was like, yeah, I know. This is my best friend Tanisha and my godson Jael. And I love this photo because it's very much like it kind of reminds you of like, you know, old mother, you know, paintings, right? Renaissance.
But yeah,
Mother and
she's wearing the
Child.
classic 90s
Yeah.
rugby.
Right, the Ralph Lauren, right.
So
It's
great.
like that, but it's like updated. And this is in our house. She's at our kitchen table at the time. She was 19 at the time.
Wow.
You know, I think one thing that I love about this body of work to Channon is that when we write in the intro of our book about how Carrie Mae Weems she was confronting the Moynihan report. And when I look at this work, I also think about conversations around the welfare queen that like Reagan and Clinton were really pushing forward, and how, you know, like that image of the hands, you really feel the care of motherhood and
Yeah.
what like not like how matrilineage means. It's so much more than just like counter to patriarchy, but it really is this deep thinking of women passing knowledge on to one another, and just a total reframe and thinking of like where is care placed in our relationship to one another.
Yeah.
And you see that in this body of work, and you totally see how this work leads to like Nona's later work. You know, you see this kind of full circle. So I know I mean, I love this work. I love seeing it and thinking about Nona at this point in her life.
Yeah, I think, you know, what comes out, I think what Nona Hope came out, you know, in the entire series is, you know, her reverence for these women, you know, motherhood, you know, women, you know, of course, like it was always the norm and, you know, in like our Mother's Day, you know, to have your children really young. And then, but of course, usually with the partner. And then most of these women were doing it on their own. But she wanted to show her reverence for them and like, you know, just how, you know, the weight of doing this maybe alone or just have, you know, the way she framed them and took pictures of them with their children. Like that picture of Renee and Tariq, that's like my favorite one in this series. It was then and it still is when I think about it. But I also love the picture that was a couple of pictures ago with my friend Tanisha was laying on the couch and she would pull the sheet. You know, it was at the time, of course, you still have the baby monitors. I think that's when they first really became popular. But she would still pull his crib to the door so that just in case, you know, she was like sleeping too hard. And she still did it with Nona there. They were hanging out, Nona photographed, but it was so automatic. Nona was like, you know, I'm here, Tanisha, you can like take a nap. And like, and she was like, she just automatic. She knew anytime she knew she was gonna lay down, go to sleep, she still pulled the crib. So I just love that, you know, that window into her life and showing, you know, this like, I feel this still, you know, it shows reverence for the weight of motherhood and like what a gigantic job it is.
And thank you. And just so we could there could be a thesis project just about young mothers. This is an ambitious talk. So we're going to pivot slightly, but into another version of mother work, right? Thank you, Shannon. So we have so many questions still. And to your work that's currently on view in the gallery here. And we'll start.
Sure. I'll talk about this body of work called The Reinforcements. In the show is called Do Not Fold, Spindle, or Mutilate. These are a series of collages that I did inspired by a series of vintage photographs, vernacular photographs of my mother and her early first sort of office job. And those photographs are on view in the room under the glass on that desk. And those were photographs that were taken between 1969 and 74. My mother came to this country from Panama, Central America. She was following her two aunts that had come from Panama in the 50s. My mother came in the late 60s. And yeah, she first worked at a perfume factory and then quickly found this job through her friend Amalia, the Dominican lady on the bottom here. They were going to English language school in Times Square, and Amalia came up to her and said, "Hey, I have this job. You know, I work at this place, and they're looking for another person. Are you interested?" And my mom took the job quickly. And this was a nuts and bolts factory in what was then called the Meatpacking District, now Tribeca. Yeah, it was. She has so many great experiences, great stories from this. And the back of this book that I printed for the show has an interview with my mom talking about these pictures. And, you know, it really just sort of set off. My mom didn't graduate college, but she was a great typist and, you know, amazing organizer and just really gravitated towards back then what they would call secretary work or administrative work. And so she worked in the sales department at that company And there was a man in the mailroom, an African-American man, coworker of hers, Nathaniel Sapp, who took all those pictures. And he seemed to be an amateur photographer, really. She said he just would go around the office photographing everybody, and then he would print them out and give them to people, which I thought was a really sweet practice for an office space and for a coworker relationship. And I can't find this person for the life of me, but I hope he's okay. But yeah, we have these amazing photographs of my mom, which is so great because, it shows her, she's in her early 20s and she's super happy to be this young independent woman in New York City, working, and, she's super fashionable and, it has all this stuff about her that I didn't know. Of course she's my mom, but this whole life before me, essentially is what I love looking at in these pictures. And anyway, I started making these collages because I had applied to the Magna Cum Laude Histories program with the work of my mom, proposing to create an archive of working women of color, specifically focusing on post-civil rights era, because it was through civil rights legislature that the office space really became integrated, and America was forced to hire people of color. Yeah, I started creating this archive, this digital archive, and just kind of pulling from various sources, and then after a while, just really sort of hit a wall, wasn't able to find very many images. And so one day in one of the cohort meetings for the program, someone said, well, how can you solve for this gap or this lack? And that's how the collages were born. I just was like, okay, I'm gonna make my own sort of, I think someone called them speculative images. I'm gonna basically take all of these materials that as a kid I really played a lot with myself. I would often accompany my mom to her job. She eventually ended up working for over 30 years at a publishing company on Madison Avenue named Marcel Decker. It was owned by a Swiss businessman, and they were a really wonderful company too. They were one of the first companies to institute a 4-day work week. So as a mother and a single mother, she really appreciated having that extra day to herself, and she really was super loyal to this company. But they were also just really kind-hearted and generous employers. They would have like bonuses every year if you didn't take sick days, and with that money, she would use to like pay for my high school tuition. And she really thrived a lot through that company. And she also had a Dominican boss, Dominican American woman as her boss. And so I would go to her office and watch all of these amazing women work. And, it was, again, a place where they were able to make a living, and they were, friends with each other, and there was really a family vibe as well. And so I grew up thinking work was a good thing. This wasn't, now it's like a dirty word to talk about work, and everybody's talking about rest, but I really grew up, thinking that work was a thing that empowered you and really, made you financially independent. And I also grew up, a lot of my friends grew up with single moms. And I grew up watching them work and watching them go to work. And I grew up watching women in the subway go to work. And, for me, it was a point of pride. It was an aspect, an identity of pride. And so, yeah, I've been making these collages and still making them slowly but surely, because, again, I still work a full-time job. But, yeah, they've been really great just to playfully work with these materials again as an adult. But also a lot of it is informed by, I'm an avid user of LinkedIn, and a lot of it is informed by the information that I come across on LinkedIn. So for example, this statistic last year of 300,000 women, Black women particularly, being forced out of the workforce is something that really fueled a lot of this work last year. Just also reading people's different stories. And yeah, I also work for an agency where our main client is IBM. So I've been deep in, and they have a Slack channel of IBM history. So I'm always deep into that Slack channel. And that is where the inspiration for the punch cards came, using these punch cards as a substrate for the collages. And the punch cards are those cards that you see in the background with a series of zeros and ones, and those were an early form of computer programming that was used. The first instance that they were used in was with the rollout of the Social Security program in this country, and but they were also used for, in the concentration camps to, one of the first things that people would see when they arrived were these computer punch card tables, unfortunately. So they've really been used throughout history as a way to tabulate and keep track of human populations in many ways. I can go on and on, but yeah.
One thing that I love about this body of work, Qiana, is that I find it in really unexpected places. And I was telling Leslie when I was doing research, I found on this body of work, I listened to a podcast, a Black woman who had a podcast on women in corporate America. And then I found a digital magazine for people that work in marketing. And they were referencing this body of work. Oh, wow. And so it's just, I love seeing this work in so many deeply photographic spaces. Yes. Because it's an example of going into an archive, bringing it forward in these really, some of the collages you make just feel like so futuristic too. And it's just so relevant, it's very much, I read something that kind of said this work goes from right after the Civil Rights Act to the early 2000s. But to me, this work is so pressing right now and needed right now. It feels very much right after the Civil Rights Act, 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I initially focused on that time period because it's technically the information age, right? It's this age where we're coming out of the industrial age, and we're really using information as a technology and as a way to build business in the United States and really globally. But yeah, it's really great to see. There have been a few artists here and there. India Beale is one artist, one photographer who, she has a body of work about women trying, out of getting their first jobs.
CPW.
She did a residency, yeah. But there are very few people who are really working with this subject of office work. Certainly labor is a huge subject in art history, but I'm really enjoying bringing in this aspect of office and corporate culture into the art world, because I feel like they're often worlds that never interact or intertwine. Only maybe, every large corporation has an art archive. But it's interesting to mesh these two worlds together.
I know. I'm listening because I'm learning, but this is like one of my favorite. The first image and this one I love so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, it's important. My mom too. She worked for the telephone company and all its iterations until finally it was Verizon. That was right around the time she retired. But when she passed and I was going through everything that she saved, they Bell Telephone used to have a magazine, so also a newspaper. They had this monthly magazine, and they would go into all of the offices, and they would talk to all the operators and the supervisors, and there were all these pictures of them, and they would interview them about any different thing that was new in the company, what they thought of it. And then they would show them working. So it was just all of these images, and she had, kept all of them because either she was in them or friends of hers. And, my mother, what I learned from her was that in these spaces New York Telephone and Bell Telephone, that they all knew each other from uptown to downtown. It was such a close-knit community of these women who all knew each other, who had so many of them came from different places. not just, you know, in America, but like Ireland, like all these different places, a lot of immigrants you had, and then it was like the first job that they had that was like well paying with a lot of benefits. Like they had stock options and all these things. So it was a job that they were really proud of. And so it was this like sorority of women throughout New York, and they like would meet up and they all knew each other. It was like really wild when she would like, you know, talk about it, or like she knew like women all the time everywhere. And she's like, yeah, she works for a telephone company.
And that's powerful.
It
you know?
is,
That's a
yeah.
powerful network.
You have like a network,
know,
right? You have a
exactly.
network of people.
Absolutely. This piece is definitely an ode to my aunt, one that I was spoken about earlier that my mom followed here to New York. Aunt Emma, Tia Emma, she worked for AT&T for many years. And yeah, she was able to support, she never had children of her own, but with her job, she was able to support a lot of family members back home in Panama. And, you know, then she had a pension. Like she was the first person I knew that had a pension.
This
Like,
is a good paying job. Like that's why I remember Verizon after she left, a lot of things they cut, but like just the fact that they had stock options, and
Yeah.
it was like, you know, and same thing, you know, my mom, I remember when my parents decided they were going to move back to North Carolina, and my mother was waiting for a transfer, but my dad and Nona went first, and he wasn't making the kind of money that he made in New York, but it was okay because she was making like money, and she would just, you know, send him money,
yeah.
and like for, you know, she's helping him pay a mortgage in North Carolina and also paying rent in New York City. So yeah, it was a good job.
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, totally. I was like, pension, stock options. Let's go back to those days.
Right? Yeah.
I think we're gonna shift and show some images from Mitochondria. This one that Leslie
And this
and I
image
absolutely
echoes
love.
the young mother's
Uh-huh.
work so much, you know?
So this image, so after, I mean, Nona, she didn't take photos for a long time, until Queen was born. And Queen was really, you know, what got her taking photos again. You know, she had this new baby, so like, how could she not, right? And then she kind of, she remembered who she was, right? You remember you remember, oh, this is who I am. So what happened was she was going to take pictures for the birth announcement because she found out how much other photographers were charging. She was like, I'm not going to pay you that. I could do that myself. So she picked up this camera that she had not picked up, like, I think legit in probably like, since like 1997 when we went to Italy for the first time. She really, like, after that trip, like, she didn't take pictures anymore. And then Queen came along. So she had done it for the birth announcement. And she still didn't take any more pictures. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, okay, yeah, I got to take pictures of my baby. And then this was, you know, inauguration day. And the camera was in her room, up in her shelf, and Queen's laying on her bed, and then the TV. And she thought, oh, yeah, this is like perfect. Like the first generation with a Black president and my, you know, my Black child, like, yes, look at this. And she liked the idea that, you know, she saw like similarity in like Obama. He had, you know, two different ancestries, right? His mother's, you know, white and his father's Black, and Queen has a Black mother and Asian father, and she just lined it up. She thought this is perfect. So, but this was really, and after this day, then you couldn't stop her from taking pictures after that. Yeah, that was really what did it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. This is one that we've often wanted to know a little more about. That's substantial, that this was
Yeah.
the moment that after all those years,
Yeah.
she picked up the camera.
Yeah. She never stopped after that. Yeah. Because it was like the birth announcement and then there was a few more things. And this is really funny because this was at a time when, like I said, you couldn't stop her from taking pictures after that. But this was like, I think this was her first year in ICP, and she would have the camera set up in the house all the time. Like she would have her tripod different places. I wasn't living with them at the time, but I would come over, to the house to visit, and I would be like, "Oh my God, with the camera," like like this is our kitchen, and so I'm like, "Oh my God," like it's right in front of the tripod was right in front of the refrigerator. And I'm like, and she's like, "Just wait." So yeah,
I love this image. It's
love
just
it.
so special for so many reasons. It really is
Yeah.
young mothers, but also I just noticed it. Is she on Facebook? Look at the computer.
yeah, she is on
I
Facebook.
miss the Facebook Nona
100%.
so much. Now I love it even more.
It's so funny.
With the Oscars, I really
Oh,
miss
yeah.
Nona
I
with the
mean,
Oscars.
I thought about her today. Yeah.
How are we even going to watch?
Yeah.
I mean-
Like, I know this year of all years, right?
So just
Yeah.
what you've shared, Shannon, just now about these two images just deepens our relationship with them in such beautiful ways. They were already really important images. You want to
Yeah.
add something, Qiana? I'm
No,
sorry.
I was just thinking when you said Facebook that I remember when Nona, shortly after we had graduated, I was working for ICP and managing their social media channels. And Nona was like, "How do you do social media? Like, can you give me some tips?" And I
You
was
must be a good teacher.
like, "Girl, just get on it. You'll figure it out." And she figured it out. Like she was like, it's like you really, I didn't want to give her too many tips, but I knew that she would come up with her own
Yeah.
rhythm, and she really did. It's like commenting on cultural news, and she really established a presence.
So this very special piece
Mhm.
to take in, you're photographing at this point. We wanted to make sure we touched upon your work, your creative work and collaboration. Are you photographing for Mitochondria? Or these are on tripod.
Yeah, some of them I was, and like I was here for this picture. She did have, the remote at this point, but then at some point she was like, "Okay, I'm like not I'm concentrating too much." So then she stopped and she said, "You just click." But I think this is one that she was just using the remote with. But yeah, I love this picture.
That bed has been in so many
Oh my
pictures
God, this
too.
bed.
It's like a family member.
This picture, like me and Patricia were talking about this photograph the other day, like how at the time it was so iconic. Talk about social media. So I was on Tumblr. I had been on Tumblr for years, and I was like, at the time when Nona was in ICP, I was like, "You got to make a Tumblr account. Put your stuff." And she's like, "No." She said, Nayland Blake had said, putting your photographs on the internet, you might as well take them and throw them out onto the street, onto the sidewalk. She wouldn't, and then this was, for some reason, I was Layla Amatullah Bahrain. I was like, Layla Amatullah Bahrain, people repost her photos all the time. I'm telling you. And so then I guess I said it so much, she was so annoyed. And this was a series she was trying out. She was just doing stuff. This is up on the roof of our building. She took a lot of photos up there that became like a series at the time she was calling The Real Raw and Ready. And so this was before White Shoes, but this is like the precursor, right? She's like, like, I'm going to be naked. So this was kind of the warm up.
And she had gotten that burn.
Yeah,
from
she
the
got the-
oil,
she got
hot
the
grease
burn. And she was
When she
so
has that.
like upset because she didn't have like, you know, scars like that, but it was like really prominent on her. She was cooking and she got burned by the oil. And so then she just decided, oh, you know, so that's where the bandages and the wrapping came from. Yeah. But she had also been kind of obsessed, lifelong obsession with Andy Warhol. And she was like looking at the photo series with him and Basquiat, where he's the boxer. And that very much inspired, you know, the wrapping of the hands and the stance. She took another picture that was like more inspired by that. But this photo, this was like Lunar New Year, right around Lunar New Year. And Nona just loved the idea, you know, like of the heritage. You know, my mom, she always like, you know, kind of views very much like, you know, African ancestry and, you know, in us growing up, her and my dad. And she just liked the idea. We were celebrating Lunar New Year. My mother's wearing her red. Queen's wearing her red. So before we went out, she took this picture of them. And I feel like it's so iconic. I just love this picture so much.
So this arch inspired the arch in that
Yeah,
room?
Marina was like, yeah.
I figured that.
So that, yeah.
So in case you haven't walked in the back, Qiana's referring to the room in the back that mitochondria is holding. The paint color, is that a color from your apartment? It's to
Yeah, so
replicate the
that's
apartment?
the paint color represents the furniture, our modular sofa that we have for many years, and it shows up in pictures in mitochondria, one with my mother, a few with Queen, and then the arch is the same. But this photograph I love. So we shot
That's my
this
favorite one.
when we're shooting White Shoes. This is like from the same morning as on Nariak, you will find me. But I just love this photo. So Nona, she realized like she wanted it to be for two different series. So, you know, she takes the white shoes off. She's like, yeah. And then Queen, this dress that she has on, you can't see it, but it shows up in another picture of mitochondria that's not shown. But it was like her favorite little dress. So she was like, I want to wear that dress to my photo shoot. She thought this was her photo shoot. But I love this. So this photo actually, Nona is thinking of herself as Sarah Bartman and, you know, finding peace. Queen is supposed to represent Sarah's child. Nona didn't really know if she had children or not, but she thought she did. And this is kind of her in the afterlife where she like rejoins her child. And this is her piece because she felt, you know, most people don't think about Coney Island, you know, being part of like, you know, the slave trade, but this is where, you know, on Coney Island, this was a place where where the ships came in and they, you know, took people off ships to start their life as, you know, slaves in America. And Nona just always found, you know, Coney Island to be such a peaceful place. She found a lot of peace here. And she just envisions it as like the afterlife paradise for the Africans that didn't make it off the slave ships, that died, you know, before they got here or when they got here.
She always talked about Coney Island as the broken Riviera.
Always, yes.
And I love that she made it her place of rest.
Yeah, she loved it.
So the work, go ahead, the muse. So the work, that's the overlap, right? She was working on White Shoes.
White Shoes and mitochondria at the same time. Yeah.
Because
she did that. She was this person, like she would read 4 books at the same time, or she would be watching, you know, 4 different series at the same time. So she definitely did. At the same time she was doing this work, she also had a series at the Jane's Carousel in Brooklyn. So this photo is funny because Nona, she would always take, since she became a photographer in undergrad, she would always take pictures of me and I never knew, or like she'd take pictures of me in my sleep in undergrad. And I found out one day and I said to my mother, you better make her stop it. And my mother was like, you should be flattered. And so this picture, this was a test shot. This is supposed to be a test shot. So a lot of photos, you know, but she would keep everything. She at like every site before she, you know, I was the test shot. She'd set up the shot and she kept every single photo. And so one day when I saw this, I was like, no. And she's like, it's so good though. Look at you. Oh, I love it. So there you go.
I mean, I love that. So this is a little sequence of the beautiful and important women. We'll move through these and then we'll get into a little bit into White Shoes because we'd love to hear more about also the collaboration of the earth-shaking titles that emerged later on with White Shoes that we know your mother was part of that process. But this is such a beautiful image just to take a moment.
Yeah. Just really quickly about this. So like Nona, my friend Abdulreza Aminlari, he's an artist too. He started out as a photographer, but now he does painting and embroidery. But as a photographer, Nona always loved his use of natural light. And I was like, you use natural light really amazingly too. And she's like, not like him. I want to get like him. And he had done this series with him and his mother in his apartment. And Nona was like, I'm going to do something like that. And so this photo pays homage to him from that series. And it's very much like it. And when she showed it to him, she said, I think, no, she didn't show it to him, but she asked me, she said, show it to Abdi and ask him, did I get close? So, yeah.
What did he say?
He said, she's always amazing. I don't know what she's talking about, but this I love too.
Yeah, this feels, the date on this is 2015. Also, the title Goddess Nona feels like the right kind of to move into White Shoes a bit.
Yeah, so this photo is part of mitochondria, but still so, and she named it Goddess Nona because Dina Lawson was at ICP and Nona was printing, not this photo, but on Nariaki will find me. And Dina Lawson said to her, oh, you've made yourself into a goddess. And Nona like would not stop saying that. She's like, Dina Lawson. She told everybody, like she told people that didn't know who Dina Lawson was. She's like, let me you know Dina Lawson? Dina Lawson, you don't? Oh, well, listen, she told me I made so when she did this, she made this photo with that in mind. So yeah.
I think, I was thinking about, and we're going to go into a few images, as Leslie mentioned, just titling and how Nona really puts Black women in the role of being royalty, right? Like Duchess, Queen, Goddess, and how Dina Lawson, there is the article that Zadie Smith wrote in the New Yorker, and she speaks to the time before Adam and Eve, like just the time of royalty before Adam and Eve. And you can kind of see this thread between Dina Lawson making that statement, which, oh my God, it would totally like blow all of our heads if she said that to any one of us. And Nona believing, like knowing who she was and how she archived her work and how she titled her work and how she just knew the weight and the importance of Black women in her work. How like Qiana, like, just this relationship you have with your mother and this like reverence for Black women is just such a through line that we see in all three of these shows. Just the reverence for motherhood and mothering is just so strong. And we see it in even the title of Mitochondria. You see it in the work.
Well, My mom, yes, Nona would show her these photos, and my mother would be like, ooh, that one should be, and then they would like start riffing, off of what it could be called, and this one was like,
Yeah, this is an
the
amazing
first
title.
one.
Yeah.
My mom, like a pregnant corpse, the ship expelled her into the patriarchy. So, this was my mother saying, yeah, it's like, it's like the ship just, spit you out. Yeah. And Nona's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, like, I don't know. My mother was from North Carolina, so she was always telling us these Southern Gothic tales. And a lot of her verbiage was like very much like really old timey. Like, so she would say things like pregnant corpse, it was like, like a corpse that was just so, it was so bloated. And, like at that point you'd find it and kids would like, stand by me, stick a stick, like kind of. So that was kind of the idea behind it. But yeah, her and my mother, Nona would show her the photos all the time, and they would come up with titles, or Nona would say, do you think I should go back? You think I should go back? And I was, no, that's perfect. That one's perfect.
Yeah.
This one was, oh my God, I loved, first of all, okay, 100-degree day. Like it was legit, like I think at the time we were here, for real, 100 degrees. And so it felt hotter, even though we were on Shelter Island, all the trees. But what's so funny about this was that Nona knew about this. I don't know if I think she knew about this site, but like one of her friends, and a woman that she was a collector of her work and they became friends, was facilitated helping us to get to this site and talk to Sylvester Manor about shooting here. But Nona had knew about this site, but Beyonce had like shot her video there, and Nona was so mad. She was like, oh my God, they're never gonna let me come now. I'm not Beyonce. But she was like so mad that Beyonce like got to this site before, like when she was doing Lemonade. So, but finally 2021, we made it, and it's really amazing.
Another example of just an incredible title.
Yeah.
Really takes your breath away.
So yeah, it's something that Harriet Tubman said, and it, Nona, like I said, she read all the time, and so she was always reading something and reading, like Harriet Tubman's biography, and this was something that just always stayed with her, because she found it true, that your body remembers, like when you're in these spaces, something about it feels familiar to you. So there are a few markers left, but your Black body is the marker. The land does hold the memory of your existence. You only have to put it there in its natural state to remember. This was a site that Nona, she did 2 photos on this estate. So this one and where the Native American burial ground is, and she really picked up a lot of vibes at this site. She really felt it. So that's where the title comes in.
We need to turn this into a week-long overnighter. CPW, Brian Wallace, thank you. You can do that. There are more images, of course, but I just wanted to I'll run through them really quickly, and we want to make sure we get to conversation. But this one in particular, I encourage everyone to go onto the CPW website, and there's audios with Channon speaking. This one is particularly powerful. I don't know if you wanted to share anything about just briefly, Nona was, I believe, under the flag, and then your mother made a very clear statement about the why.
Yeah,
the positioning.
just because Nona wanted to drape the flag over her body. That's what they did that for Medgar Evers. They wrapped him in the American flag after he was dead, like for his funeral. And so Nona wanted to do that, and my mother said no. She said, "You are, you're not trying to represent honor here. You're trying to represent sacrifice, because the Black woman in this country has always been the sacrificial lamb. So this is sacrifice." And this was, she made this right up, in honor of Sandra Bland.
And again, I believe all of these, there's audio clips of you, which is incredibly generous, beautiful programming that's available. I believe the QR code's in the back. You can also find it online.
It's another the previous one is a really nice one to listen to. The kind of the way you describe the importance of passing down your cast iron skillet in your family. It's a really nice story for folks to go back and listen to.
The photo for Dorothy Angola, I'll just say like really quickly, Nona was always like saying to me during the series, she was like, "You want to pick a site?" And I was like, no, come on, let's just do the one. And then finally she was like, "Come on, pick a site." And so I picked this site, but I picked this site because it was something she had taught me, like when she was an undergrad. She loved like New York City history, and she had like kind of like in the beginning found out, that Washington Square Park, that whole area that going on was owned by, formerly enslaved Black man. And Dorothy Angola was his wife. He died, she inherited his land. And so I remembered that story. So she let me pick, but it was really coming from her. So it was something she had taught me.
Again, we have two more. There are too many. It's too much. I just want to look at everything. I think there's 49, don't quote me, 40 something on the wall of this work. Is
Yeah,
that
there's
correct?
like 43
43,
here.
I'm sorry, 43. And then I wanted to make sure we added it on this kind of resist. I love this one. This feels very Nona.
Yeah.
And Qiana, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
I'd
this is a
love
dear,
to
dear
add
friend of
something that
yours,
Nona
and-
confided in me, and I was really surprised by it, that the white shoes and the origin, the idea for the white shoes was inspired by a performance that I gave in the MFA program, actually, because I had a series of images called The Missing Mystic that I made around an experience I had at a wedding that I went to in Mystic, Connecticut, and I was wearing white pumps that I had bought from Payless on Church Avenue in Brooklyn. And yeah, she confided in me that was where the idea for the white shoes came from. And of course they go on to mean, really white patriarchy, but
that story was what like said something clicked. She's like, yeah. And so that's what happened. It just like all came together, how to like make this work come alive and use the white shoes as this way to make it come alive,
Thank you for sharing that. That's really incredible. As I said, we could go on and on, but we want to save time for questions or conversation with you all. There's so much to take in and enjoy. I don't know if you want to. We have about 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, folks have questions.
any questions from the audience?
Not a question, more of a comment. I just want to thank you guys for being the Alice Walkers to the Zoraidals. And making sure that, especially Black women, particularly Black women, that our stories don't go untold, and that we don't need to wait, until we, leave our physical bodies to be seen and to be celebrated. It brings me so much joy and like almost to tears seeing how well your sister is revered and how well you hold her archives. It's something that I have a fear about for when I go, because my family's documentarian. Pass this to them. Someone cares. I know they do. I'm just like, because they care like I do, and it's so evident that you care, like she does, and then some. And so I'm with you on no one comes you saying they're your biggest fan, because you have but thank you again really for being, again, like I said, the Alice Walkers, the Zornials. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice. You know, Qiana, I've always loved the project you did around Joe, and you know, hard to place, and just like
Joe's my husband.
Joe's your husband. But thinking about the archive as this way, it's kind of what we spoke about earlier, this way to like fill historical gaps, and how you're really filling this historical gap in the UK for mixed race kids, and how they were, you know, hard to place. And you tell the story and you archive with such care. And as someone who knows you deeply, it's so beautiful to see how you hold this person and how you hold his archive, and how Channon holds Nona and holds an archive in such a loving way.
Yeah. I also think too, because, you know, I'm the younger sister, I think like Nona had as big a part in raising me as my parents, and you know, she raised me to revere her, so I have no choice.
But she revered you as well. I mean, she was always talking about you whenever you were around, always thinking about you, always worried about you. Like you guys were
She's a really good big sister, yeah.
I do remember a few times asking her questions about things, and she'd say, I have to go talk to Shannon. I'll get back to you. It's like, okay.
Her confidant, yes.
Yeah, and then one thing, and I don't know if folks had questions, just signal if you want to say something. Great. And yes, Zoraida's mother.
Hi, Mom.
You know, the artist always says that, you know, they don't give you the clear message about your work.
Yeah.
They want you to perceive you interpret. And both, the work of both artists are exemplary. I'm really happy that I came today, and I had an opportunity to be here. But I want to comment on the images that that strike me the most. And the one, Nona's image on the rock, which is nude, if you can you put that up? I thought that was like, for me, was so striking, the message that it sends to women of color, because here she is in the immensity of the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, 2/3 of the earth is water. And these rocks are humongous. And you have a body that can be fragile, but is also strong. And I think that the way I saw it, I said she's telling us that the struggles that Black women have gone through in this country, and, you know, over the bigger part of the world, it has strengthened us. And it tells us that we are powerful. Powerful. And I think the white shoes just gives a little, it says, you know, we can be fragile here.
Yeah.
But we are powerful. And that we should really, what's the right word? Hold on in that. So that's not the right word I'm looking for. I cannot think of the right word at this moment.
I understand.
I really like this.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. This image, I talk about in the audio guide how Black photographers Facebook group really critiqued her, tore her down over this image. this was in the early days when they were seeing it. I think it was like in 2015. And so the work was getting notoriety, but it wasn't the full series, that you see. And she had gone viral because of the Wall Street photo. And so this photo was in an article on Huffington Post about it. And I mean, they just ripped her apart. They were like, what is this? And she didn't care. She was like, she had reached that stage in her life and that she was like, I'm going for it. I'm going to risk it all. I don't care. So yeah, I'm glad that you say that about it because I always thought the same thing.
Oh, thank you. The Crown Act. Yeah. Mm. Wow.
And I really like that because women have to fit a certain,
Mm-hmm.
look a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
have any civil rights,
Mm-hmm.
be able to have some doors open.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact that you showed that, but that really was a certain,
Mm.
it comes at
Mm-hmm.
that natural.
Yep.
It's beautiful,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that's, I really, awesome.
For those of you who don't know, the Crown Act was a piece of legislation passed in 2011 that basically says that we are allowed to wear our hair naturally in the office, and we won't get fired, or it's illegal to discriminate against natural hair. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Shout out to Zoraida's mom.
And then finally, we just wanted to share more, I'm sure, in this book of yours, this brand new.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is the Dodge and Burn book. It has a really long academic title because my publisher forced me to do that. But it is called the Dodge and Burn Interviews. It is a compendium of 35 interviews that I did on the Dodge and Burn blog, which is a blog that I wrote from 2007 to 2018. And the blog was focused on interviews with photographers of color, aiming to diversify the canon and really hear from voices that I felt weren't being heard. This cover image is by Nikia Brown, who also was part of the critique group Dodge and Burn, eventually went from a blog to a critique group that I held for in person and virtually for a while. And yeah, it's a great book of interviews that I republished in the original form, and then I went back in 2023 and had all of the photographers update themselves, because some of the interviews, it was a period of 10 years that I had passed, and a lot had happened to their careers, and it's really, I think it's a great resource. It's also in the back, there is a series of 7 essays that I've published over the years. There's an essay, there's an interviews also by guest artists like Patricia Silva, who interviews Hernandez Davis. And yeah, it's a passion project that has culminated into this book. I had stumbled upon this book deal, honestly, because I was doing a peer review of another book and another photography book by Routledge. And when I submitted my review of that book, the editor was like, actually, we've been looking at your blog, and we wanted to know if you would like to publish a book. So yeah, it was a really great, took me years to get it done because when I got the deal, I was pregnant with my second child, and I had no idea how much work that was going to be. But yeah, finally published it last year.
It's so funny that you mentioned that's how you got your book deal, because when Leslie and I, we were co-teaching a women picturing revolution class at Columbia University, where Nona was the guest speaker, and then a publisher emailed me, and then that's how we got our book deal. So it's so nice to see photographers in academic spaces too, and to see us kind of get these opportunities in interesting ways. I see there's a question.
Yeah, sure. The title, dodge and burn, just a rough discussion. I think in the practice of usually underrepresented groups, there's some balancing act between revealing or redact. And I saw in your photographs from Namesake, you offer up this information from the DuPont name that you were given, but also you provide these women with anonymity. So in your practice, how do you choose what's most important to offer up in regards to your identity or the identities of people?
Wow, that's a huge question. I mean, going back to Dodge and Burn, that, you know, that name comes from a photographic technique, right? A darkroom technique where you're, I was trained in darkroom photography initially, so, you know, used to using my hands to dodge and burn a print. And I really love that metaphor of dodge and burn, as you said, of a way of revealing and or concealing. And in the mission statement, it says that, you know, these interviews are with people who have been dodged and burned from the art scene and art history. Yeah, in terms of how do I choose, my work is autobiographical. It's always been a way for me to research my own origins that in many ways are unclear. And so for me, it's really about self-knowledge, and I'm glad that it does, you know, resonate with other people as well, but it always starts with me and what I want to uncover about my life. And of course there are things that I don't share, you know, with the book that I've made about my husband, which tells the story of his upbringing as an orphan in the UK, as a mixed race orphan in the UK. You know, many times before I actually publicly showed or published that work, I would go back and ask him, is this okay? Is this okay? And it's always about definitely getting consent. And even, you know, with my mom in these pictures, getting consent from her, and she's never liked me to photograph her. So I've had to be really strategic in how I show her in my work. There's another body of work where she's not in the pictures, but, you know, there are objects that she gave my children. They're these wishbones that are in the images. So it's yeah, like you said, it's a balancing act, but there are certainly ways that you can reveal and still conceal at the same time. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.
Absolutely.
Versus what has been historically taken from us,
Mm-hmm.
written about us without having any knowledge of who we are or how we are perceived. So just thank you for at least opening this memorial, first faith and first that takes the future stuff out there.
Oh, thank you.
You guys, thanks for coming so much.
Thank you, Leslie and Zoraida.